Welcome to AJVC's Behind the Scenes. I'm your host Aviral today. Joining me are Nilesh, Abhinay, and Varun. This week we've written about Paytm. Obviously, the reason is very clear. Paytm is listing on the Indian Stock Exchange with one of the biggest or the biggest IPO that has happened till date. It made a lot of sense to talk about the company because we might think that it's a very straightforward journey for a company like Paytm, but it's not actually been that straightforward. While it started as fintech's OG, it's been a bit of a mixed bag over the last 4 or 5 years since the demonetization explosion. And we thought it might be good to, look at the highs and lows of the company and whether this IPO is a new chapter in the company's future. So Nilesh, maybe if you could start with how Paytm started. In fact, it was not even Paytm when it started. What's the origin of the company, and probably talk us through like the early years and their scale with the wallet as a use case.
Yeah. So the story of Paytm starts with its charismatic founder, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, or VSS as he is often known in startup circles. So VSS had a dream, and the dream was to always be an entrepreneur. He started his first firm while he was in engineering college or just after that. And once that was sold, he started the second firm called 197 Communications, which is what the Paytm's parent company is known as at the turn of the century. The idea at that point of time was to create content for mobiles and supply them over SMS to subscribers and users. Why did VSS do this? He was able to access the internet and he saw content which he was not able to see on SMS, and he felt that customers or subscribers would like the same. Slowly, once he started by offering initial value-added services, the gamut of services he offered was increased. He expanded to news, ringtones, jokes, exam results, CBSE and ICSE exam results, cricket scores, music, etc. This expansion from one product to multiple based on a platform as you will see, is a recurrent theme across VSS startup journey. So around 2004, this is how things continued till around 2004, where he got his first angel investor, and by 2007, 197 had raised its first institutional round. By 2009-2010, 3G services on mobile became the in thing to do. And VSS decided that he would build a product which would allow consumers to pay through mobile, which is what is actually Paytm, pay through mobile. So Paytm was born in 2009 as a service which allowed prepaid users to top up their mobile accounts and shop using their bank accounts and cards, credit and debit. VSS knew, and at that point of time, all telecom companies had started to offer recharges on their individual websites. Now, if you had phones, multiple phones from multiple telecom firms, you maybe would have had to go to different websites to do it, telecom websites. VSS allowed a one-stop shop where users could could recharge any of their mobile phones. Now, also at that time, it was known that Indians are very conservative with paying online. So this semi-closed wallet of Paytm, wherein you can add money electronically, you can use it across merchant establishments or do a peer-to-peer transfer, but you can't withdraw cash out, fulfilled this need where users could be safe and secure that even if something happened, the amount of loss in the wallet would be lower. Now, this is how things continued till 2013, adding one step along the way. By 2013, Paytm got an RBI license for what is called as a semi-closed wallet, prepaid instrument, etc. Now, this allowed Paytm to double down on its wallet adoption and allowed Paytm to reach out to merchant networks and service offerings. This was very essential for them because their competitor at this point of time was Airtel Money, which had already launched their mobile payment bank system. And remember that the reach and the distribution of Airtel Money is was much higher than Paytm at that point of time, because any person who sold a recharge became a merchant for Airtel Money. VSS knew that this, along with this license, he needed to be aggressive to reach out to a wide variety of users so that he could expand Paytm. And this aggressiveness and this will to win is something that you will continue to see in this epic story that is about to that has happened. Now, once again, coming back to the wallet, initial users were only related to mobile top-up and utility bill payments. But slowly, VSS kept adding, or Paytm kept adding additional use cases for investors to spend their money on. So whether it be DTH recharges, wallet payments, gas, educational fees payment, so on and so forth. The overarching idea was, if a customer needs to pay, he or she ought to do it through Paytm. Now, in this journey of Paytm, there were two big incidents that have to be talked about. The first of them, and both of these have turned out to be very happy accidents for Paytm. The first of them was when RBI RBI made it mandatory for a two-factor authentication system for all credit card purchases online. This meant that customers who even entered their CVV number had to also enter an OTP number which they received on the mobile. This spoiled the experience of a cab aggregator we all know called Uber, and Paytm jumped onto this solution and allowed its users, Uber users, to pay through the preloaded Paytm wallet. That gave a huge fillip to the wallet users of Paytm. Now, going ahead, Paytm kept tying up with different wallets, with different cab and auto providers to expand the use cases of the same. They then went ahead to go into hotel bookings, flight bookings, entertainment, so on and so forth, aiming to build up super app which would fulfill all payments need of their customers. Obviously, one cannot ignore the influence that Alibaba and WeChat in China had on Paytm, and therefore it was just a matter of time before Ant Financial and Alibaba came in as investors for the next round. Now, the next thing which happened in November 2016 was the demonetization exercise launched by the government of India, which was a huge disruption in daily Indian lives with long-term repercussions. Suddenly, all across the country, citizens had to use either plastic cards or rely on digital mode of transfers for any transaction or any high value or medium value to high value transactions. Suddenly, because of their brand reach, everyone started to use Paytm. Paytm was well known, and so all the Indians started to use Paytm. Paytm jumped onto this and through this brand story and tried to build a brand by having a full-fledged outlet across all leading dailies in the next day's newspapers with the Prime Minister's photograph and Paytm saying, "Ab ATM nahi, ab Paytm karo." So demonetization enabled Paytm to grow its user base exponentially. So they claimed a record on the next day, on the next 2 days, 100% growth in wallet balances. However, this expansion, exponential growth due to demonetization was only possible because Paytm by that time had continued to invest in its brands. And it decided to build its brand by sponsoring the most popular sports tournament in India, sports in India, cricket, and then next the IPL. Vijay Shekhar Sharma himself in an interview said that the promotions that he did on the World Cup, sponsoring the Indian team and the IPL, built instant brand recognition for Paytm across the smallest of villages in the country. That meant when his team went to these merchants to help them adopt Paytm, they did not have a problem at all with the brand recognition. Then another regulatory disruption happened. When RBI in 2013 gave approval to a new type of bank called the payments bank, which could accept restricted deposits of up to 1 lakh per customer, and so on. The RBI's objective, or the central bank's objective, was to enhance digital, paperless, and cashless banking. This fit Paytm very well, which, because it already had a wallet, now that it had a payments bank license, immediately converted all its wallet's customers to the Paytm payments bank. Over time, the Paytm payments bank started to add several businesses: wealth management services, mutual fund transaction, gold and instant bank settlement, so on and so forth, as we have seen them do since the beginning.
No, fascinating journey, and I think that was like the serious exponential growth and up curve in the Paytm roller coaster. Varun, can you talk about what happened after that? Like everyone expected them to potentially become this really gigantic company. They had access to so much capital, one of the largest unicorns at that time. What happened next?
Yeah. I think what happened next was interesting, right? And a testament to the grandiosity of VSS's vision. I think riding on the momentum from demonetization, I think at the time there were studies that suggested Paytm was amongst the most trusted brands in the country, right? I think the Paytm team sat there thinking now there's an opportunity to use payments as the use case and expand to becoming a super app, so to speak, right? And so they launched multiple initiatives, starting with Paytm Mall. I think that they had a version of e-commerce which was the more local bazaar type e-commerce that was operational. They rolled that up into Paytm Mall, set up a separate entity, and got Alibaba to invest in it. Now it's interesting, right? Alibaba was always viewed as the third player that would capture this market, right? The e-commerce market. You had, because Amazon was here, and then you had Flipkart, and then Alibaba, which was probably the only other large behemoth from an e-commerce perspective in the world that was to come here. And interestingly, Alibaba was clear that they were not gung ho about e-commerce, right? But I think they saw a play with the Paytm, and they went through with it. And fortunately or unfortunately, Paytm Mall hasn't necessarily worked out, and we'll come to that in a little bit. During that time, they also launched something called Paytm Games, right? They launched it it was called Game Pinned initially when they launched it. Over time, it got rebranded to Paytm First Games. When it was set up, they again set it up as a separate entity, right? And this was based in Singapore, and they got AG Media to invest in it with them, right? Which was basically backed by Alibaba and their gaming platform, so to speak. So with those two things, those two went live. I think again, seeing all of that great momentum and execution, they got Berkshire Hathaway to come on board as one of their investors, which was again quite an achievement for them, because Berkshire Hathaway, Paytm was Berkshire Hathaway's first investment in India. Just one second. Berkshire Hathaway, Paytm was Berkshire Hathaway's first investment in India, right? And again, everything said and done, Paytm has created a lot of firsts, right, for the ecosystem, and I think a lot of people have drawn inspiration from him, and getting Berkshire Hathaway was no mean feat from that perspective. And typically people suggest diversification is a way of managing risk, but unfortunately, it's not necessarily worked out that way for Paytm, right? Both Paytm Mall and Paytm First Games have struggled for different reasons. If you look at Paytm Mall today, actually in 2020, as of 2020, the company had burned close to $600 million. And the tragedy with Paytm Mall was, I don't know if they really had a strategy on how they were going to differentiate and win the market, right? You have to remember there were two very large, well-funded players existing in the market in the form of Amazon and Flipkart. And obviously these were execution behemoths, right? Amazon had done this globally. Flipkart had achieved significant scale by that point, and significant capital and investors with very deep pockets who wanted to continue backing them. Paytm strategy seemed to be rolling out more of the same, which was taking their cashback strategy, which they had in their wallets business, and offering it here. I think it's estimated that in the Diwali of 2018, they burned through $150 million just because of this strategy, right? And by 2019, by early 2019, I think it was clear to everyone that something needed to change because they could not fundamentally continue burning capital the way they were without actually building anything sustainable. And I think there are, the numbers absolutely cratered, right? At one point, they were doing 150,000 deliveries a day. That cratered to about 35,000. The visitors on their page dropped from millions to a few thousands. So again, I guess as soon as it took away that policy of cashback and discounts, I think it was very obvious that they would struggle, and they did struggle. Similarly, Paytm first games, right? I think they entered a market where in all the verticals that they operate in, they're clearly they're clear laggard, right? So when you look at fantasy sports, they're clearly fallen behind Dream 11. When you look at the real money gaming space, they're clearly behind MPL. And then you have, you had a lot of indigenous card games that had scaled quite significantly especially in Rummy and Poker. And things like that. And Paytm tried to do a little bit of everything. They've not gotten anywhere. I think FY21 revenue came in at about 20 crores. And in 2019, they had 30 million users. And at the time they filed the DRHP, as per the DRHP, they have 28 million users on the platform today. And Paytm first games cumulatively contributes to 0.7% of the group's revenue, right? So again, minuscule in terms of the larger scheme of things. And it's unclear where they will go from here, right? And which again is unfortunately a theme across many of their initiatives that they have launched. And then, I think they continued down the super app strategy despite these failures. And they launched a couple of other, I think where they found gaps within that super app strategy was in the financial services side, right? So both from wealth management as well as lending or providing credit to their customers were the areas that they identified that they needed to get better at. And so they launched Paytm Money, and then they issued something called a Paytm First Credit Card in conjunction with Citibank. And actually, just coming back to your super app strategy, right? I think the way Paytm was thinking of their super app strategy was you had a high frequency use case in the form of payments, right? So, and then, which is what you need as a super app, you need a high frequency use case, right? That's one part of the peg to build your super app strategy out. And then from there you expand into multiple other services and become that so to speak halo entity in somebody's life. If you look at some of the super app if you look at some of the super apps globally, right, and they've all happened in the East, not so much in the West. You'll notice that while there was always a high frequency use case, so likes of Alibaba and WeChat, they were much more engaging, right? So WeChat was a communication app like WhatsApp today, right? I think if you look at most people's phones, the app that they spend most time on is WhatsApp today, right? Similarly, that was the case with WeChat in China. And Alibaba was obviously very engaging from a shopping perspective and discovering product perspective. In other markets where apps have become super apps is because there was no depth across the other verticals, right? And India is one thing is that we have a very robust, thriving ecosystem, and every vertical that Paytm wanted to compete in, there were already incumbents, well-funded incumbents who were doing really, really well, right? And so and hence we don't at least we've not seen their super app strategy actually work out the way they have, and there may be some more aspects about the Indian market as a whole that may not allow for that to happen. But just coming back to Paytm Money and Paytm First Credit Card, right? Today, Paytm Money has 1.5 million users as per their DRHP. And you must remember the last 12 months or the last 15 months have been the biggest bull run that India has seen in a long time, which has led to rising tide raises all boats. And if you look across all the brokerages, at least the internet-led brokerages, they've all seen numbers go significantly higher. But Paytm hasn't really, numbers haven't moved, right? I think revenue for FY21 from Paytm money came 8 million. While their value proposition is strong, they've offered this direct mutual fund investment opportunity platform. How you monetize that, I think, still remains a question. Having 8 crores of revenue in FY21 from Paytm money, I mean, that's nothing to talk in the larger scheme of things. When 20 crores is 0.7% of revenue, 8 crores is 0.3% of revenue. It really begs to question, how they will scale these things and how they become meaningful in the larger picture for Paytm. Similarly, with Paytm first credit card, we've not seen it, gain a lot of tremendous amounts of traction. They went with the same cashback philosophy. Everything you spent on the card, 1% cashback, I mean, it's interesting, but we've not seen it scale in any meaningful manner. Against this backdrop, one thing that he's always managed to do is raise capital, right? He's always come out, he's always found a way to move forward to BSS. And that's when he raised around late 2019, he raised $1 billion round, led by T. Rowe Price, which is a large investment manager in the US, and continue to go from there.
So, no, makes sense. I think, they've kind of now started focusing on being more focused and being a fintech firm versus an everything firm. And I think that journey of figuring out that through losses and burn and experiments has probably helped them get there. Abhinay, can you talk about what's happened in the last few years? They've become more focused. They've also, listed for the biggest IPO ever in India. What's your view on, where they were and where they're going to be?
Yeah, I hope my voice is clear.
Yeah.
So when we look at Paytm, right, from starting, as Varun is also mentioning, they are into multiple businesses, and few of these businesses have very low margin. When you are in such a low margin business, thing is you need to find more ways to probably, get things going. You might have to have a loss leader. In this case, maybe payments is a loss leader for them, and then they will gain market share in other things. And then I look at Paytm, there are three, business units which I can see. One is the whole financial services, Paytm money, payments, etc. Second is the wealth second is the e-commerce part, the Paytm mall, ticketing, flight booking, etc. And third is the gaming and engagement part, Paytm games, and they have multiple engagement, apps as well. So now for Paytm, one thing is, they are fighting war on so many fronts that they have to ensure that they, win across these fronts, or maybe they need to decide which one is working, which one is not. So let's say Paytm Mall, this is one frontier on which, Paytm has not done great, primarily because it requires a lot of investment in terms of post-order experience, which is around building warehouses, logistics, right? We also mentioned in the piece about Meesho, right? How Meesho has grown, but Paytm has failed around more or less same time they've started investing in Paytm Mall. On the other side, when we look at wealth management space, again, here the problem is customers trust you with their money, right? They want they are really they want players who are very serious, and then only they would like to give that money. That type of money has come into companies like Zerodha or Grow, for that matter, right? So it has not built so much of traction in those verticals, but yes, one place where it has worked well for them is Paytm Gold. Again, they could trust with their money for Paytm that, I am keeping it in wallet. People started, putting money in Paytm Gold. So now they are seeing multiple businesses have grown, and also customers, behavior has changed in last 5 years. There have been a couple of black swan events that we have seen, demonetization being one for India, and COVID has been in itself an event that world has seen, right? So now what has started happening is in India, the economy has moved towards digital transaction, and what Paytm is holding on, one important distribution platform of P2M, right? Person to merchant payments. That's the distribution platform that today Paytm is holding on to. It is probably the biggest dosawala in a tier 3 city, or a chai wala in tier 3 city, everyone has, Paytm has been successful in building that distribution. Now, what that means is, while in P2P, maybe Google Pay or Phone Pay have got, a bigger share, but where money can be made is probably P2M, where they have merchants, and once they have that merchant data, they can probably do lending. Once they have small, they become a small finance bank, then they can do that as well. So in that case, they have something which others don't have, and it is very tough to build that type of distribution. In my opinion, probably BharatPay is the only player which can have their feet on street to build that type of distribution and come to merchants. That's number one. Second part is lending, right? If you're in fintech, probably you can do a lot of things if you start lending. That has not really started for Paytm. Probably they would start soon once they have the license in place. Third thing which I feel is, now they are in that phase where we see what they've started doing is they have started reviewing business like Paytm Mall. They have probably for a couple of years now, they have not invested more. In fact, they are looking at it whether it's working or not. Now they're consolidating some of the businesses. So that's the reason probably we will see that once the focus comes to their financial part, financial vertical more, probably value unlocking might happen. We'll see more innovation, because that's something which we have seen from, it's an innovation to do an ad that, in 2016, what they did there with the ATM nahi Paytm karo, right? But on the side, at the same time, hiring so many resources and executing on field within 5 or 7 days almost, a good number of merchants who had the QR code of Paytm. So that type of innovation, if they can do, the machines that they have installed, when they saw that fraud was happening, people used to show that I have paid the money, but they used to show the screenshot of old payment. Now they have that box that says 30 rupees prapt hue, something like that, right? That type of innovation, that if they continue to drive, that's where we see a lot of valuation happening. Yes, we also, when you're looking at it from the IPO perspective, um, their pre-IPO round did not go well. The valuations were on higher side. Investors were not happy to give a valuation of around 20 billion. The last fundraise happened at 16 billion valuation in 2019. So they were not ready to give that valuation. Yes, Mr. Damodaran has also written a good piece on the valuation, the valuation model that he has put in. The story that comes out, it does look, in terms of IPO value that they are asking, it does look very expensive. But at the same time, there are a couple of things, if it works out well for Paytm, and if they can focus and execute. It's a game of execution. It's a very competitive market. Even, we were chatting just before this call that how it's difficult. We really don't know how Google Pay will make money. We really don't know how Phone Pay will make money. But Paytm does have one thing which is going for them, which I feel is the distribution, massive distribution that they have. They have got 50 million active users. They have got 350 million users using it. They have got close to 20 million merchants using them. So now that's a tremendous distribution platform that they have. If they can execute, probably, in some time, they can definitely justify the valuation, or maybe probably 5 or 10 years, later, we will feel that it was really cheap. It's just that the value unlocking happened a decade later. That's the thought I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Abhinay, Varun, Nilesh. Was amazing, I think, writing and doing this piece. Everyone who's listening in, please subscribe and share this with your folks, and tune in for the next episode in a fortnight.